you all the best. I think Father George will do the honors. Okay, I will be here for a while. Okay, so good. I think people are joining in, so you can go ahead and start whatever your plans are.
Yeah, please start, Father.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Please go ahead, Father.
No, I'm just saying hi. The others are joining in, and I think Father George may be joining in there. So, Gabi, thank you for this, and welcome to India, to XLRI. Okay, yeah. I think she disappeared or what? Where is somewhere?
I think.
Yeah.
I think she's facing some connectivity issues.
Yeah, that's why I just see that she's there.
How are you, Father? You're also mute, Father. You're muted, Father. We can't hear you.
No, get started with the program. See what's happening to Gabi. Give a call or something.
Father, she is back online.
Okay, and then you'll start, and Father George will do the honors. I'll be there for a while. Yeah. Check with Father George. Call him up and see if he's there.
Father George, are you there? Something is wrong with the.
No, call over the sideline. They can call his.
Father is about to join. There is some connection issue, so he is about to join.
Yes. Hello.
Okay. Now, he has joined. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, he was having some issues with the laptop. Okay.
So, good evening, Father Paul.
Good evening. Gabi is there. Gabi, welcome to India, to the Institute. Always welcome. They will lead the program, so I'll be there for a while. Yeah. Go ahead, Alka. So you are on. Father George is there.
Yes.
Father George, please.
Yeah. Good evening. Please. Good evening and welcome to this program. We are really grateful to Dr. Gabriel Voigt for accepting our request and addressing our students and all the participants. And you all know she is well-known scientist in the action of nuclear science and other activity, Equality Center, and standing for women's rights. And her contribution is so immense, and we will be delighted. We will be delighted to welcome you to this program. Here I am having just so. Thank you very much, ma'am, for coming and addressing our students. Yes, Ms. Alka.
Thank you. Thank you, Father Paul, for joining in. Thank you, Father George. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from whatever part of the world you are joining. It's a pleasure for me to say greetings of the day. On behalf of XLRI Center for Gender Equality and Inclusive Leadership, it's my honor to welcome you all for the second lecture of CGEIL, PATHMAKER CGEIL Dialogues. This is a dialogue which we had started about a few months ago, and the whole year we had planned to have some kind of dialogue to improve the women empowerment situation in the country. Today we are very happy that Dr. Gabriela Voigt, as we were trying to practice her pronunciation of her family name, Dr. Gabriela Voigt, joining us live from Vienna. She's a German national, and she's basically comes from the southern part of Germany, which is Munich, perhaps most of you know. And she has a doctorate in biology, but her journey started from biology, and all the way she went to the International Atomic Energy, and where she occupied some of the most important positions one can think in the nuclear sciences and atomic sciences. Although she always corrected me saying that, Alka, I am not a nuclear scientist, I'm a biologist and I'm a radioecologist. But your position is there, that behind you have your WIN, so you are occupying a very important position in International Globe also. Gabi has something very interesting to share with us. She had started her journey, as I said, from Germany all the way to International Atomic Energy. I was talking to her last week, and she was telling me when she started her journey, it was basically she was surrounded by the male scientists, and she will be the sometimes only women scientist working in that sphere. And from there, she all the way became the head of one of the most prestigious laboratory of International Atomic Energy. And again, she was the first woman to do that. I would say that not many women in the world have achieved that kind of recognition as you have done. You had been twice the president of the world's women in nuclear sciences. And at that time, when it was started in 1992, it was just a group. When you became the president of that group, you tried to make it an NGO. And since then, it has been growing. There are 132 countries member of this group, and 35,000 scientists, women scientists are member of this group. And we are very thankful that you have today connected us with this group. I would like to acknowledge the presence of some of your friends who are joining from various parts of the world, from the WIN also. And also you have connected us today from as a part of our international collaboration with the Professional Women Network. I'm sure some of them will be joining or join because of the time difference. And you are also connecting us with the women scientists in the International Atomic Energy. I will not take too much time of yours and not of our audience, but on a personal note, I would like to say that Gabi, as she says, she doesn't want to be called Gabriela, but I would like to call you Dr. Gabi. Dr. Gabi is an ardent yoga practitioner. Her day starts with yoga, ends with yoga. She has very strong ties with India. She had been many times to India. She had come long ago to do some collaboration with that Bhabha Atomic Center. But of lately, her son, she has two boys, and her husband is a full-time father. Her eldest son is marrying an Indian girl from Mumbai. So she will be coming to India for a big fat wedding in December. And she will be, I'm sure, traveling to one of our campuses in Delhi or in Jamshedpur. With that note, I invite Dr. Gabi to deliver your lecture. Let me just unfold how the evening is going to be unfold. We will have Dr. Gabi to speak for about 35-40 minutes. After that, we will have a chat box will be open. You keep on typing your questions in the chat box. We have a team from Jhajjar campus. Idea, that is the 5 members are joining from this team. It is called Inclusion, Diversity and Empowerment Association. I would like to introduce them also. The 2 members from there are Kuldeep and Eshita will be the anchoring the chat box. And in the support, we have Rishabh, Bhavya and Anisha. And then after that, we will have Ms. Shobna Rana to give vote of thanks. And this is how we're going to start. Dr. Gabi, it's an honor for me to invite you to deliver your lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Any problem, Anuka?
Sorry?
Any problem? It's okay. Disconnected.
I am back.
Yeah, even.
Did you hear the first part?
No, Dr. Gabi, we did not. It's all frozen. It's all frozen.
Okay, okay. It's the I'm very grateful and honored to be invited to this seminar. It's the second one of this nature, because the first one was given by a good friend of mine, Miss Lieselotte Waldheim, who served the UN for many, many years, and whom I met in the Vienna International Center, where she was heading a group, the women's group, where I then also became later heavily involved. So Lieselotte has a different career because she is more diplomat and policy, international relations. I'm a natural scientist. As Ms. Eika has already indicated, I studied biology, and actually I am coming from the south of Bavaria, close to the Austrian border, where I was born, and I was attending a girls' school, which nowadays is rather rare because they tend, for diversity purpose, they tend to combine male and female students into one group. And actually, this is the first point I want to say, because I think for girls in a special age, it's actually much easier to be among other girls, since there is not this competition starting. And the boys are often very more technically oriented. The girls are more to the social side. And somehow, then the girls often lose out. I was always interested in mathematics, in physics, biology, which also led me then later on to study biology. Actually, it was genetics, where I promoted, then I did my PhD in genetic engineering. So up to this time, I had no idea about nuclear, or few, because I did a radiation biology course, which was part of our standard curriculum. And I used some radionuclides to mark DNA, but I was not so much in the nuclear field as such. My PhD was in Bayreuth, where I was also actually the contact point and the intermediator between the group of students and employees and the chair of the university, of the genetics department. And it was always that I somehow, because probably I was the eldest of 3 girls, I tend to take on responsibilities very easily. Now, after Bayreuth, I returned back to Munich, and in those days, in 79, in the 80s, it was really easy to have employment. Nowadays, it's much more difficult. So I immediately got a job in about biokinetics of radionuclides in animals and men. So that was literature study, and I was more used to be a laboratory person, which I preferred to stay in the laboratory, to work with my hands. And I started to establish own experiments. And I studied the transfer of cerium, a transuranic element, into rats, and age dependency, because there was often still there is the question, is there a difference in the transfer when you have newborns or where you have adults? Converted to a part of the Ministry for Radiation Protection. I then changed to the Research Center for Environment and Health, where I did studies on the transfer of radionuclides in animals. So actually, I was investigating the transfer of different radionuclides to a cow, which was a pilot cow. And at the time, I was really famous because I walked with the cow to the whole body counter, and we measured the cow. I measured excretion and specifically milk, And at the end, I had also to kill the cow and measure the meat. And this was all for the purpose of emergency preparedness, to determine if there is, in case there is an accident, how is the entering of radionuclides into the food chain. Then I did experiments with pigs, with goats. I stayed a couple of months in the US where I worked with goats and transfer into goat milk. And actually, I did some career in this Institute of Radiation Protection, and I became the section head of that part, radio ecology, which was part of the risk analysis section. Now, I have to say, I was the only woman, only men around me. I never really experienced assault. But of course, I always had to work harder, because often men were going to the conferences where I was doing the work, and until I cried out and said, I want to go to the conference. So you need to be strong and also show that you are there, not only doing the work, but you need to expose yourself also to an audience, to defend your ideas and to speak out. Then I had also, I would say, I had a mentor to a certain extent, and that was my boss at the time, who was the head then of the Institute of Radiation Protection. And although he didn't like women, somehow I convinced him that I'm capable and I'm working hard, which means in the end, he wanted to promote me to take over a new area which combined genetics with radiation protection. And he offered me the job, a new group, which was challenging and interesting, but he told me, you can't get a higher position. I said, why? Oh, I cannot defend this. And I said, well, then I have to think about it. And in the end, I was really frustrated. So at the same day, I received a call from the IAEA, and if I would be ready to come for a couple of months to establish an environment program. At that time, I was internationally quite well known, because I was coordinating European Commission projects. I was having national projects. I was the head of this radio ecology group, and working a lot with colleagues overseas in the US, but also in Russia, former Soviet Union, connected to the Chernobyl accident, connected to Chelyabinsk, and contaminated sites. So I said, that's a good opportunity to lay back, to think about, maybe convince my boss to give me the higher post. And so I accepted, and I came to the IAEA in the year 2000. I developed an environmental program for the laboratories in Cyberstorf. And probably if you know the IAEA has a laboratory in Monaco dealing with marine environments, and Cyberstorf was now ready to take over terrestrial environments. During that time, the position of the director became free. And actually, I was asked to apply for the job, which I did, although I was 100% convinced I won't get that position, because my supervisor at the time, the Deputy Director General, he was Swiss, but with German passport. And normally in the IAEA, it's almost not permitted to have same nationality on that high level. So I gave in my application, knowing that I won't get that post, just for fun. And I was ready to go back to Munich, to my home institute, to take over that new group. And suddenly I received a call. I was in UK by the time. I will never forget in the evening when the office of the Director General called me and said, Miss Vogt, you got the job. Please come and start. And so I accepted that position. And I always remember the interview I had with the then Director General, Dr. El-Baradei. Fantastic man. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
It's a little bit, yeah.
He's really a fantastic person. And we immediately had the same wavelengths. And he told me then once later, I needed a woman for the laboratories because there were some issues there. And he said, I needed a woman to clean that site up. And I think I did that, which of course does not make you always friends. Specifically with the employees, you have acquired certain privileges, and then the agency is also a political construct. So I think it was really a tough time, but I succeeded to create a kind of common spirit, a one house in the laboratories. And I think the good issue there was, it's not so political. It's still hands-on. We do the measurements. We are in the laboratories, and you're far away from the political quarrels, which was more convenient because diplomacy, you have to learn. I'm coming from a science environment where you were open to speak, to discuss, and the diplomatic environment has a special language. So, and you need to balance what you say. And I think that was an experience I had to learn, that to learn the diplomatic language. Now, I was director of in the division in NAHU, and agencies laboratories, and NA was nuclear sciences and applications. And it combines all the different fields of nuclear applications in food and agriculture, in environment, but also in human health, in industrial applications. So it's a conglomerate of quite different topics. And it's not only nuclear energy. Probably you are aware that the agency does have these two mandates. One is the safeguarding of nuclear material. And on the other side, it's also the application of the nuclear possibilities in these different areas, which is quite challenging and actually not very well known to the world. If people hear IAEA, they combine it with safeguards or potentially with emergencies, with nuclear threats, with nuclear energy. And the other side, which is really for mankind, for the benefit of mankind, is often not known. So I worked in the laboratories covering all these different areas. And there, my education was really coming to the full exploration, because I had experience in food and agriculture. I had experience in health issues. We did epidemiological studies. I had experience in measurement and technical expertise. So it combined all the different areas. And I worked there for 9 years. I was heading that laboratory. When I joined the agency, I was the only woman under 64 at the time, directors. I shortly overlapped with another lady, a French lady, who was division director in nuclear energy, but she left when I came. And so I was used to a male environment, and sometimes you need to have a thick skin But I think if you take it with humor, things are easy and you don't have to take it too serious, but sometimes strange comments are being made. Nevertheless, so this is 9 years as director of the laboratories, agency laboratories. And when it became really very difficult because we had different interests all imposed on the laboratories, we were very successful actually. We received several special awards from the Director General in these different fields, and my staff was, after the difficult start, quite happy. We were like a big family, about 200 people, and but in the cyber stuff area, which is outside of Vienna, which requires also commuting, but in a way it was like a little niche in the agency. So, but when it became really difficult, I said, well, since I had the problems with the other directors in headquarters, where it was always the question about the different authorities, responsibilities, which were not clearly outlined. And I think I'm the only director in the agency who abolished her own post, because I went to the DG and I said, it's not sustainable. We need somehow to realign the laboratories. And in 2010, I took over the part of the safeguards laboratories. And I have to say, this was probably in terms of easier life and having a work-life balance, the easier part and the most nicest part in the agency, because I was then a part of the safeguards departments where you had clear directions, clear responsibilities. We were responsible in the laboratories for doing the measurements. We refurbished the laboratory. It was one of the largest refurbishment projects at the time, over 80 million euros, where I was the project manager to build a new nuclear material laboratory and a new clean laboratory for safeguards purposes to enhance our capacities, which included not only the building as such, but also the equipment and the staffing. And that project was implemented on time, actually before time, and under budget. And I think this is something I can be really proud of, because normally when you hear all these huge, large projects, they are over time and far over budget. But we succeeded to this. And in a way, this is my legacy to the IAEA. Was not easy because probably you are aware that Austria is a non-nuclear, if not anti-nuclear country, to get all the permissions to have the laboratories there, despite that it's under UN regulations. But we always worked with the local authorities and to get all these permissions, that in the end you have plutonium on stock in Austria, and to get the permissions. But we succeeded, and that's the legacy of my IAEA career when I retired then in 2015 after almost 15 years serving the IAEA. Looking back, it was a very exciting time. I learned a lot personally, professionally, and it was not easy, hard work. But I have to say, I enjoyed it very much. And for me, retirement then was coming from 150% work back to zero. And that's when I decided with my former colleagues that we are opening a little consultancy, which is still running. And this consultancy is looking into transfer of radionuclides in the environment. It's called REM. This is where I'm now co-director with my friend. We have a few employees. And actually, after a difficult start, we're now taking really speed. So we are having projects in Kuwait, in United Arab Emirates, in Kazakhstan, And at the moment, we are preparing a project for Qatar to develop environmental decision support systems, helping, first of all, to inform stakeholders about actual situation, where they should redirect their money for remediation purposes, emergency preparedness purposes. And it's quite challenging and nice to still stay active and connect to those countries, because in nuclear, probably you are aware, the agency just recently published a report about that in the next 30 years, nuclear facilities will double, despite what you see in Europe. But even now, you had heard probably some 2 days ago that the European Parliament has actually put nuclear under green energy and renewable energies, which might change also the use of nuclear energy as such in Europe, with some more increasing trends. Austria and Germany are not on board, but since we are going through a crisis during the now and due to the Ukraine-Russia war, I think probably people have to rethink about including nuclear into the energy mix. I know India is different there, and also in Europe there are other countries who fully go for nuclear, like United Arab Emirates, and specifically in arid areas, nuclear is high on the topic, and Saudi Arabia wants to build nuclear power plants, since they are all aware that also there is a limitation on oil and gas reserves. And what's then? So actually preparing the world for the future, where nuclear is part of the green solution and carbon-free, emission-free solutions. So it's nice to contribute to such. Now, since all this time, I was always heavily engaged in gender issues. I already mentioned that I was very, very often the only female among men. Now, there you learn also to behave in a way, because people speak women and men speak different languages, and you need to learn and you need to understand what is meant if a woman is saying this or if a man is saying this. There are in the meantime courses about this, which I would highly recommend, because as you know, women are from Venus and men are from Mars, and this is also how you express yourself. So I was always involved in gender issues, and I became the gender focal point in the IEEA, chair of a subcommittee for the Staff Council on gender concerns. And with this, I also liaised with Lieselotte's group of the WIC Women's Group. And we did a lot of things. I became the president of Women in Nuclear Global. There are many chapters. In the meantime, as Aika already mentioned, we have more than 35,000 members worldwide. We have a special partnership agreement with the IEEA, but also with a nuclear headhunter company, with the World Nuclear Association and some associations, where we promote women, first of all, to study engineering, mathematics, physics. So we reach out to schools, universities, but we also network between women, and we provide opportunities for women to follow the nuclear trace and get a profession, and maybe even be employed in the IEEA or CTBTO, UN organizations which deal also with nuclear aspects. And I'm very proud that we are in Austria, non-nuclear country, please remember. as a non-profit, non-governmental organization, which allows us to officially work and have a legal status. Now, since you have heard about my career, you might wonder what lessons did I learn? And I was trying a little bit to think about, because leadership is something, there are natural leaders, but you also can learn to become a leader. One of the important issues, and often during interview questions, you are asked, leader, what is the difference between leadership and management? So for me, management is part of leadership, because management is that you know how to well manage an institute, a project, and this can be learned. Leadership is there you need to have visions. You need to have the commitment and the drive to go forward, to change things. This partially can be learned, but partially it cannot be learned. So I think we have a lot of good managers, but unfortunately, few good leaders. You really need the future. You need the aspiration to, in the end, when you look around, the real leaders, they are people who have charisma. And there are not so many. Nevertheless, what I have learned during my career is, first of all, just be yourself. Don't pretend to be somebody else. You are you, you have your strengths, you have your weaknesses, but your weaknesses can be also strengths. And I think you shouldn't, as specifically as a woman, you shouldn't try to become a man or more male than a man. It's not good for you. And you will be considered as kind of a strange body because you are not a man. And so keep this women aspect, which is very helpful. And you see now more and more in companies, they want more women. Why? Because women have their strengths. So stay as you are. Stay a woman as you are. Be self-confident. Trust yourself that you can achieve a lot. And so in your life, you will face situations where I think, can I do this? Really? Am I capable? Yes, you can. You need just to trust yourself, and you are growing with your challenges. So be courageous. Take on positions. You think, I'm not so 100% sure. Men do that, and that's why they are more successful and make more career. And so you need to trust in yourself and be courageous. Speak out. Often when I was sitting in meetings, you know, everybody around the table and this and this and this, and women tend not to speak out. They admire these men who sometimes also say stupid things. Don't underestimate. It's not always that they are splendid. Ask a question. You might think it's stupid. Often it's not that stupid, and other people, they just don't dare to ask the question. So you need to be seen, you need to be present, and you will be seen. And a little example, when you are in a male-dominated environment, and I had an idea, and I raised my hand and said, yeah, can we not do it this way? Silence. Another man not far away from me asked the same, made the same suggestion. Everybody was applauding. And then I stood up and said, thank you very much for taking my idea and bringing this further. So you really need to be courageous and speak out and make your point. Don't get annoyed. That's the other issue. I was often in situations where we had strange comments. This woman, what she doesn't know anything and she's not an expert. So, you know, you need to take it easily. It's not you. It's not you as a person or your capacities. They just are sometimes it's competitive. So they would attack you, and you have to take it with humor. Often I get a floppy reply to some of these strange, also sometimes, I wouldn't say harassment, yeah, but close to. And so don't get annoyed, take it with humor and with grace. Beat them with your own weapons. Build a family environment. I told you that the situation in the cyber laboratories was quite difficult at the beginning. So I tried to build a more nicer environment, which means you speak also with the cleaning lady, with the super duper diplomat in a more private way. You need to know what is their problems and try to make attention to that problems. And your employees will feel much more involved and much more committed when you are seen as a person who has interest in you, not in just that the organization works, that you are successful, that you make money, but in the employees. I think it's very important. What I tried to do is I had monthly coffee breaks, which I paid, to have free coffee and cake for everybody, where we just could meet on a more relaxed environment and manner to talk about different things. It's also good for networking, by the way. Now, as I said before, also, it's clear when you are in a leading position, in a high position, you need to work hard. And my day didn't end at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I often worked up to night. I started early, and what I always excluded is the weekends. The weekends were for family, and only in very, very exceptional cases, I worked on the weekends. Because you need to have that balance also, that that work doesn't eat you up. When you work hard, be really careful that you are not becoming the servant of others. That's what I meant before. I was doing all the measurements, all the experiments, but my male colleagues, they went to the conferences. So you need to be clear, I do the work, but I want to also to have the acknowledgement. You have to be sure that you are seen. Volunteer also for some work you really like, because that brings fun, brings satisfaction. And if it's scientific, I think it's really great because it really widens your expertise. Now, don't expect that everybody loves you. You can't be everybody's darling. That I know that was for me in the very beginning very difficult, because I came from a science environment. Well, we were competitors, but in a way, amicable competitors. There, suddenly in the agency, I was exposed to really quite some attacks. And you have to be aware that not everybody will love you. There will be people who hate you and they want to get rid of you. And somehow, again, it's not you as a person, it's competition. It's sometimes some characteristics. Sometimes it's also personal, but don't take it. You are not a bad person. You go your way. Despite, and you will for sure have a few who like you. So liaise with those, get your allies, and try to network with those you can trust and rely upon. And once you have such a group around you, you feel also safer, even in a kind of not so friendly environment. Commit mistakes. Not everybody is perfect. And what I have often seen, there are people who they always think they are wonderful. You are not always wonderful. You make mistakes. You are a person, you are a human being, and you should make mistakes, because from mistakes you learn. But commit that you made them and rectify them. And you can take advice from others, which will bring you also more allies on board, because when they see, okay, she is not just like this, she will acknowledge that there might be something which went wrong, but she is ready to rectify. Then if you can, and this is what specifically I always advise to the young people and young ladies, get a mentor. Get somebody who can help you in an organization. They have the network, they have the links, they know the people. They can introduce you and make you familiar. They can share expertise. They can help you avoiding mistakes they have made, or help you when you are doing mistakes. So I think it's really a great way, specifically for young women, to have a mentor for your career in an institute. You can also be a mentor yourself. Take a young person on board, work with this person. You learn a lot. I have done a lot of mentoring in the past, specifically for women. And I was a coordinator of a mentoring working group in the professional women's group, where we are trying to share expertise, to learn from each other and promote women into more leading positions. And last not least, you need to have a supporting environment. And what does this mean? You know, I was working often. I left home 7 o'clock in the morning. I didn't come back before 9 or 10. I have 2 children and I have a husband. Now, I was privileged because my husband, he was working for the UN refugee and he's a lawyer. But when we decided to have children, he said, I will give up my job. I will do the household. I will manage the family and I will raise the children, and you are free to do career. That's still today very, very seldom. What I see more and more is now that actually they share the responsibility, and there are now means foreseen also for men to take paternity leave, not maternity leave, but paternity leave, and also to contribute to the education and the raising of the children. That's the optimal solution. Now, I was privileged. Normally, it's always the other way around. Women give up their jobs, and it's really a pity, because all the investment you have done to study and then to stay home, I personally cannot imagine to do it. Some might be happy. It's the decision of each one to do so. But if you feel annoyed and try to come back into work also after you have given birth to children and stayed home for a while, it's really beneficial for your self-esteem to go back into work. And I can only tell you that when I was looking for new employees, the women who returned after a break in their career, they are the most powerful and the most engaged and most effective and efficient employees you can have, because they know how to organize. They are really very well focused. They are committed, and they want to demonstrate how good they are. And I think it's actually, this is something what needs to be far more considered, because often in programs, it's restricted to age. So of course, when you are giving birth to child, you are between, let's say, 25 to, in the meantime, 40. And when you come back, then you can't meet this limit of 35 years anymore, but you are not old iron, if I'm allowed to say that. You are really actually stronger than the rest. And I think this has to also change in the future. So in order to sum up, and I think, I don't know what's the time since I didn't follow it up, but probably we are coming closer. So when you are a woman in leadership, and actually it's not only for women, it's for anybody. And we embrace also men. I think women without men cannot exist, as men cannot exist without women. And we should rather work together and really balance our capabilities, capacities, and bring it together to be the most efficient. So, but when you be aware, when you are in leadership, you need to have a vision. You need to have good management skills. You need to commit to work, which sometimes is inflicting on your private life, but also share your experience, be open. And with this, I can only say, take your chance. The time is now. Diversity is high on the agenda, and try to go for a career, not only in nuclear, but in general, in leadership positions. And thank you for your attention. I'm open to any questions you might have.
Yes, thank you very much. I think I'd like to invite our IDEA team to take the questions from chat box. But one thing I think while they are just collecting the questions, if I have time, I'll just ask one thing. What do you do with this unconscious bias which is built in? I mean, even your colleagues try, but there's so much bias built in over the centuries. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, the unconscious bias will continue. But what can be done, and that's what I tried to introduce in the IEE. I mentioned before that you are having courses where you can actually learn how women, men speak, and a better understanding of the different approaches will already help. I think this glass ceiling is getting thinner and thinner with the awareness now that women need to be involved, and that minimum 50% of the world's population is female. And this is needed in order to be successful. And there are so good examples in the meantime that companies who have women in leadership in their steering committees, that they are so much more successful. So I think there is, and there will be always this glass ceiling, but the more women are taken on board and the more the 50-50% is reached, the thinner this glass ceiling will become.
Thank you. Kuldeep and IDEA team, please.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ishita from IDEA at XLRI Delhi NCR campus. I would like to start by thanking Dr. Gabi for the enlightening session. Being a woman in STEM myself, I found the session very interesting and helpful. So thank you, Doctor. Now, I, along with Kuldeep, will be taking up questions that people have asked via direct messages or even the questions that will keep coming up on the chat. We'll start with a question that showed up repeatedly in different forms by many people like Ms. Shrayanti and Ms. Aditi. So the question goes that, what are your views on the difficulty for women to get into STEM and whether it has gotten any easier in the past decade?
Yeah, well, when you look at universities, actually you will detect that a lot of women are graduating, but then there is a kind of drain. They become children and they stay home. And I had a couple of PhD students, excellent students, female ones, who then became pregnant and they didn't continue their career. This is one thing we need to fight, because keep them further involved, keep them there is a possibility also when you have children that you can still continue to participate in meetings, in seminars, what's going on in your institute, that you will continue being involved. The other issue is STEM. Still not too many actually do study it. But there is a slight change in the meantime, and looking back over the last 10 years, there are definitely more women going into STEM fields. I mentioned before schools. Schools are very important. And one for me, major issues is, and this is where you have a differentiation between male thinking and female thinking, is that mathematics, physics, these natural sciences, they have to be taught more interesting. Because when I was in school, it was really actually boring, yeah? You learned all these formulas and you didn't understand. So I think it's very much also dependent on the school system and how teachers and schools are teaching natural sciences to make it more interesting, also for women, with examples. And this makes all the difference, because once you understand, you have it in your brain, then you become more interested and you dig deeper. And this still needs to change. I think it's still too kind of, technocratic. It needs to be changed to some more interesting teaching. At university, it's a bit similar, but there I don't see that big problem. It's really on the earlier age group that women decide to go into a more STEM-oriented field. And it also, I think it also has to do with the different development stages of boys and girls. And I often did courses, or when we had our open day back home in my institute, the boys, they came in a certain age group, let's say between 12 and 16. The boys came, they saw the knobs and they were chuck, 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 chuck. Let's try this. The girls stood back because the boys took over. And then they were giggling and talking about something else. When the girls came alone, they started also said, oh, what is this for? Can I measure this? And so I think there is also this different development stage of the children needs to be considered, and to STEM needs to be made more attractive also for the girls. For me, this is key.
Yeah, thank you. That was an interesting insight, Dr. Gabi. We also have a follow-up from Professor Ramchandran, that other than being more inclusive, what are some specific advice for men that you might have for this?
Now, men, I always found they are more straightforward. They have their idea and they follow it straight. What is also in behavior, I have seen men really fighting like crazy with each other. And afterwards they go and have a beer together. Whereas women, when they fight, it's an enemy for life. Yeah. And we have to be more careful about that. And then women don't go out with this networking. Women do actually, they have problems with proper networking. Men do that easily, yeah? They go and have a beer or a drink afterwards in the evening. Women rush home for their children, and they have to allow for this. Men are, you know, one of the things is men are shameless, if I'm allowed to say that, because I always use this example. When I did interviews and asked the applicant, a woman and a man, did you do gamma spectrometry? Then the woman would say, yes, I studied it at universities, I'm familiar, but I haven't done it for the last 5 years. The man, exactly same situation, would say, oh yes, I'm an expert. I have done this at university and I'm familiar with it. And this is, you know, women need to learn, and men do that. They know better how to sell themselves. And they have, I think, more self-confidence. Maybe it started from education, where women are more deserving. Yeah, it starts in the family, whereas the male one is pushed to show up, to be present. And I think it's a lot to be looked in education. Men have their advantages, quite clear. Huh? But I think you need both in order to be to have a real good, successful working group. And I wouldn't take only women, honestly. This is also not good. You need to have that balance because everything needs to be in balance, as we know.
I think we're coming close to 60 minutes. If everyone agrees, we can have another 10 minutes for the Q&A.
Sure, ma'am. So combining a lot of other questions that we received, there's another question with people like Mr. Akshat and others. So what difference do you see, doctor, while working with people from different countries? Do you see any significant differences in the approach they have towards inclusion specifically?
Yes, of course, there is a lot of difference. Having worked in the IEA with many, many different nationalities, people behave differently. And when you enter the agency or the UN system, you are always asked, you don't know your nationality anymore. Of course, you can't forget your nationality. You can't forget how you were raised, how you were educated. And actually, I always said the Austrians were the most difficult employees I ever had, because they have several traits which are difficult to handle. Nevertheless, I think most important is that you need also to be aware of the cultural difference. And when I'm working with a Muslim, I cannot do certain things. We had, for example, an incident, an Italian, very great scientist and actually a very, very pleasant person, a unit head. And he had a lady, radiochemist from Saudi Arabia, covered, and she did some work in the laboratory. And he was full of joy because she did an excellent, great job. And what did he do? He hugged her. Can you imagine? A Saudi Arabian woman, very traditional. And the next day, the ambassador of Saudi Arabia was in my office and said sexual harassment. Yeah. So you need to learn how the different cultures, the major differences, and you have to be open to that and acknowledge this. It has a lot to do with sensitivity, and you need to be flexible. But first, before you really know, you need to inform yourself. What are the to-dos and the not to-dos specifically in a certain culture? And on the other side, it's so inspiring and opening to have these different cultures, to learn about different areas in the world. And in the end, we are all humans. And in the end, it boils back to human behavior, to humanism in the end, and how you communicate as a person. But yeah, there are a lot of challenges working with international. You need to learn. Also, the Russians, they have certain things where you think, oh my God, is he or she offensive? It's not meant like this, but you need to know. Huh?
Thank you, Dr. Gabi. A question on similar lines from Miss Mercy is, to what extent do you think the cultural upbringing impedes women and girls to take up leadership roles and the position in a male-dominated career?
Yeah, definitely. We are working together now with Women in Nuclear Africa, which is a regional chapter now, to include more girls into the education system. Of course, certain cultures see women in a certain role, and they don't like that women take over other roles. And the upbringing is definitely influencing that. But where it starts, it's education. As soon as you get the young girls to provide them with proper education, then they can further develop. And everything starts with education. And this is also sometimes, I mentioned that you need to have a supporting environment. And for those girls who don't have that supporting environment, where exactly very traditional family roles are still pursued, it's much harder. But their school and education can help to overcome that.
I think we're already a little bit overboard now, and there'll be many questions will keep on coming. If you wish, we will be happy to send over all these questions to Dr. Gabi. I'll invite Shobna Rana to give a vote of thanks, please. Shobna, are you there?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Gabi, what a pleasure to hear from you. I think you've given us a refresher course on leadership, and I think you highlighted, how women very often suppress the natural leaders in them for a variety of reasons, and in the role of mentors, some of us emphasize that should be brought out much more with people we work with. It's been such a pleasure to have you. I think the men and women in this audience have learned a lot, especially how to be a human being who is relevant and who makes a contribution over and above their gender, but to understand that we speak different languages and to respect it. We are very fortunate in India. We've had so many role models of leadership with women over the decades. So it's been great to just sort of have all of that reinforced. We hope you'll come to XLRI when you come to India, and we'll be very happy to welcome you. Thank you so much. It was a real delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shobna. Dr. Gabi, it had been a real pleasure to have you. And as Shobna said, that it was like a refresher course for us also. We learned so much today. Without realizing that what you were telling us and what we are practicing these days. Thank you very much. I'm sure that when you come in December, we will have the honor to have you at our campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope so too.
Thank you. Thank you. We have to now sign off. Yeah, sign off. Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Alka, for arranging this talk. It was real pleasure listening to a real leader sharing the experiences of human leadership and inclusive leadership. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Father Paul?
I am here. I've been listening. Thank you. So it's good. Yeah. Thank you, Gabriela. Yeah. We call you Gabi. I hope it's okay. Is that right? Yeah, right. Okay. Since in Munich, yes, or others?
Now I'm in Vienna.
Vienna, okay. So maybe next visit of mine, we'll see somewhere. We'll see. Yeah. I was in Munich for 2 years.
Yeah.
In Bavaria, yes. So, good.
Also, Munich is a very nice city, but I prefer Vienna now.
Good. Yeah, wonderful. They also offered me a job in Munich University. I didn't take it. So, so I did my studies there. Yeah, it's good. So I'm here. So welcome to India whenever you come, and we'll be delighted to. Yeah, that's good.
With pleasure.
Yes.
I will try to let you know when I fly into my son's marriage.
Yeah. Just drop a mail to us. That that will be good. Yeah, we'll know. Yeah. So December is a cooler month in India, so not as cold as Vienna. So, It's pleasant. It's around, yeah, that's the pleasant one. Good.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, Alka. Thank you, George. Thank you, Shobna. Students, thank you there. All right, all the best to you. Yeah. And let's continue the dialogue. All the students are there. Good. Okay, shall I log off now? Is that okay? Yeah.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll be back with another lecture series sometime in next month, most likely. And thank you very much for joining all of you. Thank you, Gabi, once again. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody, and all the
Goodbye.
best.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Very nice, Gabi. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's my
Yeah,
pleasure.
And I like the second part when you really gave us the workshop. It was very nice.
Thank you, Alka ma'am, for arranging such a nice lecture series.
Okay, I see you again. Huh?
Yeah.
And
So
thank
sure.
you, students. Bye.